If you told me a few weeks ago that this season would come down to one final game with everything on the line, I'm not sure many people would have believed it. But after what we just watched, here we are. The 49ers survive one of the wildest games of the season, pulling out a 42-38 3-8 win over the Bears, and suddenly everything snaps into focus. This wasn't just another regular season victory. This was the game that officially set the stage for what could be the most important regular season matchup ever played at Levi's Stadium. From the opening kickoff to the final defensive stand, this game felt chaotic, emotional, and completely exhausting in the best possible way. The thing that stands out immediately is how much pressure was riding on this one. The 49ers had no margin for error, and yet they still found a way to win their sixth straight game. They're now sitting at 12-4, and more importantly, they've officially eliminated the Rams from the division race. That alone matters. But it's what comes next that changes everything. Both the 49ers and the Seahawks now control their own destiny. Win the next game, and you're not leaving Levi's Stadium until the Super Bowl. Lose it, and your playoff path gets a whole lot more complicated in a hurry. What made this win feel different was the way it unfolded. This wasn't clean. This wasn't comfortable. This was a game where the 49ers had to absorb punches, respond emotionally, and keep their composure in a shootout that never slowed down. Touchdowns were mandatory. Field goals didn't matter. Every drive felt like it carried the weight of the season, and somehow the 49ers matched the Bears score for score when it mattered most. Games like this test your belief in a team, and if you're a fan watching this one, you probably went through every possible emotion. Think about it. This game could have easily gone sideways at multiple points, and yet the 49ers kept answering. That's what good teams do, and that's what great teams learn how to do before the postseason starts. This win wasn't about style points. It was about survival, momentum, and setting up the biggest opportunity imaginable. Now, everything funnels into one final showdown, at home, with everything on the line. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you. Where does this Bears game rank among the wildest 49ers games you've watched in recent years? Was this one of those games you'll remember for a long time, or did it just feel stressful from start to finish? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying these breakdowns and you want daily coverage heading into this massive matchup, make sure you subscribe and help push this channel toward 1,000 subscribers. It makes a real difference, especially with a week like this coming up. Because, as wild as this win was, the story of the night really starts with how badly things opened and how perfectly they ended. And that brings us straight to Brock Purdy, and one of the most dramatic turnarounds you'll ever see from a quarterback. The game couldn't have started in a worse way for Brock Purdy, and that's what made everything that followed so remarkable. On his very first pass of the night, the Bears read it perfectly. Jaylon Johnson broke on the ball, tipped it up, and Tremaine Edmonds turned it into a pick six just seconds into the game. 15 seconds in, the 49ers were already trailing, and you could almost feel the collective groan from everyone watching. In that moment, the question wasn't just about the scoreboard. It was about how Purdy would respond mentally after such a brutal opening. What followed was the exact answer you want from a franchise quarterback. Instead of unraveling, Purdy settled in. He didn't panic. He didn't force throws. He trusted the offense, trusted the play calling, and trusted himself. From that point on, he was calm, decisive, and efficient. Every drive felt more controlled than the last, and before long, it became clear that the Itai early mistake wasn't going to define the night. That kind of response tells you everything you need to know about his growth. Purdy finished the game completing 24 of 33 passes for over 300 yards. throwing 3 touchdowns and, yes, only that 1 interception. But the stat line doesn't even capture the full impact. He also added 2 rushing touchdowns, becoming the first player in franchise history to account for 5 touchdowns in back-to-back games. That's not just a nice milestone. That's elite production in high-pressure moments, the kind you need when the season is on the line. The defining moment came late. With just over 2 minutes left, Purdy delivered a perfect strike to Jawan Jennings on a crossing route that turned into a 38-yard touchdown. In a game where every possession mattered, that throw was fearless. And I know what probably crossed your mind as soon as it happened. Did they score too soon? Given how both offenses were rolling, it felt like a real concern. But that's the kind of decision you want your quarterback making. He didn't hesitate. He trusted the read and delivered. Even beyond the touchdowns, Purdy's poise stood out. There was that extended scramble where he bought time for what felt like an eternity before finding Kyle Juszczyk in the end zone. Plays like that break a defense's spirit. They also show how comfortable he is operating within chaos, which is critical this time of year. After the nightmare start, Purdy turned in one of the most complete performances of his career, and he did it when the team absolutely needed it. I want to know what you thought in real time. After that pick 6 on the first throw, did you ever doubt Purdy in this game, even for a moment? Or did you feel confident he'd bounce back? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe Brock Purdy is the quarterback who can take this team where it wants to go ahead and like the video and subscribe. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and this next game is going to be huge for the channel. Because as impressive as Purdy was, this win doesn't happen without a group of players stepping up when the 49ers needed them most, especially with key stars sidelined or leaving the game early. That next man up story is just as important heading into the biggest week of the season. One of the most impressive things about this win is that it came with the 49ers once again leaning on players most fans weren't talking about before kickoff. This has quietly become one of the defining traits of this team. Every time someone goes down, someone else steps in and gives you winning football, and against the Bears, that pattern showed up all over the field. When you lose stars and the offense still drops 42 points, that tells you something about preparation, depth, and belief inside that locker room. Jake Tongs is the perfect example. With George Kittle unable to go, Tongs didn't just fill space, he produced. 7 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, and he looked comfortable doing it. He wasn't just running simple routes either. He was getting open, making tough catches, and keeping the offense on schedule. It honestly felt like a Kittle-light performance in terms of reliability. And that's not easy to do in a game like this. Performances like that are exactly why the 49ers value depth the way they do. Then there's the offensive line situation, which could have easily derailed everything. Trent Williams leaves the game on the very first play with a hamstring issue, and suddenly Austin Pleasance is thrown into the fire at left tackle. That's about as tough an assignment as it gets. Were there a few pressures? Sure. But step back and look at the bigger picture. The offense still moved the ball, the run game still worked. Purdy still had time to make plays. When backups can step in and the offense doesn't collapse, that's a massive win heading into the postseason. Christian McCaffrey deserves mention here too, because his night was another reminder of how valuable he is beyond just raw numbers. He ran for 140 yards, caught passes, and consistently picked up tough yards when the offense needed them most. The run game is finally clicking at the right time, and that takes pressure off everyone else, especially with injuries piling up. Now, the big question naturally becomes health going into the Seattle game. Will Trent Williams be able to go? Can George Kittle get back on the field? Those answers matter, but what this game showed is that the 49ers aren't fragile. They don't fall apart when adversity hits. They adjust, they respond, and they keep scoring. I'm curious where you stand on this. Which unsung hero stood out to you the most in this game? Was it Tonjes, Pleasance, or someone else entirely? Drop your pick in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed, because this week is going to be non-stop updates, especially with injuries leading into Saturday night. Because while the offense found answers all game long, the final outcome still came down to the defense, making the plays it absolutely had to make when everything was on the line. If you only look at the box score, you might walk away thinking the defense struggled, and in some ways that's fair. They gave up yards, they gave up points. It wasn't pretty for long stretches. But football games like this aren't decided by perfection. They're decided by moments. And when the 49ers needed stops the most, that's exactly what they got. This was a classic bend-but-don't-break performance. And in a shootout, that's sometimes all you need. The biggest difference showed up in the red zone. The 49ers were perfect, scoring touchdowns on all 5 of their red zone trips. The Bears, on the other hand, had opportunities and didn't fully capitalize. In the fourth quarter, they settled for a field goal in a situation where touchdowns were required. And later, on a goal-to-go sequence, they came away with nothing. That swing is the game. When everything is on the line, execution inside the 20 matters more than anything else. Late in the game, the defense also showed awareness and discipline. On the final sequence, they didn't panic. They mixed coverages, brought pressure at the right moments, and forced Caleb Williams into a rushed throw on the last play. Bryce Huff and Keon White, both additions brought in to help this defense, were right in the middle of that final stand. By the time Williams let the ball go, the throwing lane was crowded with red jerseys, and the pass fell incomplete. Game over. This wasn't a dominant defensive performance, but it was a timely one. And that's something we've seen from this group before. They might give up yards between the 20s, but when the game tightens and every snap matters, they find a way to make just enough plays. In a game where both offenses were rolling, holding the Bears out of the end zone twice late was the difference between winning and losing. Heading into the Seattle matchup, that matters. You're not always going to shut teams down, especially against good quarterbacks. But if you can trust your defense to make a stop when it absolutely has to, that changes how you view their ceiling in the postseason. So, let me ask you this. Do you trust this defense in big moments, even if the yardage totals aren't pretty? Is this a unit you believe can get key stops in January? Let me know where you stand in the comments. And if you appreciate defenses that rise to the occasion when it matters most, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed as we push toward 1,000 subscribers. Because now, after all of that drama, all of that chaos, it comes down to one final game. At home. With everything the 49ers want sitting right in front of them, everything the 49ers have worked for this season now funnels into one final night at Levi Stadium. There's no scoreboard watching. There's no complicated math. Win, and you lock up the NFC West and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Lose, and you're suddenly opening the postseason on the road as a lower seed. It really is that simple, and that's what makes this moment so powerful. Opportunities like this don't come around often, and the 49ers have put themselves in position to control their own fate. What makes this matchup against Seattle even heavier is the setting. A short week, a Saturday night game, primetime energy at Levi Stadium with the entire league watching. If the 49ers take care of business, they won't have to leave home again until the Super Bowl. That's not an exaggeration. That's the reward sitting right there in front of them. And when you think about how this season started, how many twists it's taken, and how much adversity this team has faced, it's almost unbelievable that the path is this clear. This is also why this game feels like the most important regular season game ever played at Levi Stadium. Not just because of seeding, but because of what it represents. Momentum, belief, validation. The offense is playing as well as any unit in the league. Brock Purdy is making the right decisions. Christian McCaffrey and the run game are peaking at the right time. Even the defense, with all its ups and downs, has shown it can deliver when it matters most. This is a team that knows how to win close, stressful, season-defining games. No one inside that locker room is talking about what happens if they lose. The focus is on finishing the job, on defending home turf, on proving that everything they've built over the last few months was leading to this exact moment. If they beat Seattle, this becomes one of the most unlikely #1 seeds in franchise history, and it changes the entire playoff picture. Before we wrap this up, I want your take. What's your score prediction for Saturday night? Do you see this turning into another shootout? Or does the defense clamp down when it matters most? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you're fired up for this game and want full coverage leading up to kickoff, make sure you subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Hit the like button as well, because this is what football is all about.